to chat with you no matter what we're discussing, although these subject matters are particularly odious these days. I know you saw the interview that I just finished with Colonel McGregor. It's hard to figure out which is the worst conflagration for America, Israel, Gaza, or Ukraine, Russia. We'll get to your views on that, but let's start with what you have just published about how deadly and destructive, how horrific and unlawful was the attack by exploding pagers by the Israeli Mossad on Lebanese civilians last week.
Well, I might as well start at the top. I mean, the top is that this is a war crime. It's clearly been defined as a war crime to use booby-trapped weapons to kill indiscriminately is a war crime. It's not quite at the genocide level that is Israel's already practicing with the Gazans, but it's the same sort of thing. It's a complete disregard of norms, and there are norms for warfare and what we call just war and decent conduct of wars when they take place. And the Israelis are basically setting their own rules. They're saying we're out to basically destroy all of the Palestinians. That's clearly the plan right now. It's going on the West Bank. It's going on in Gaza. And now they're moving on Lebanon. And today they were reportedly saying in the Knesset that they need this kind of safe space between Israel and the Lebanese. So they're going to be carving out a zone between the two countries that presumably will extend up to the Litani River. So that's something we can look forward to. And the bombings and everything that are taking place, which are killing hundreds of Lebanese, and these are war crimes too. The two countries are not at war. And, this will continue. Every day, the U.S. media is not reporting it much, but the fact is that hundreds of people are dying, and they're dying in a product of war crimes and genocide.
The Israelis always wanting to control or at least influence the narrative had their friends in the media in the West say that 50 or 60 Hezbollah soldiers were killed and 3,000 were injured. Didn't it turn out that the vast majority, like 90 to 95% of the people that were killed and injured, were civilians? They may have been civilian employees of the government, but they were civilians. They were not soldiers.
Yeah, the Hezbollah in Lebanon has a political role, and they provide social services of many kinds to the people in southern Lebanon, and this has been going on since forever. And so the fact is that if these the number of these pagers, as reported in the media, has varied between 3,000 and 5,000, is what I've seen. And these have been widely distributed among people who, for various reasons, have contact with the Hezbollah bureaucracy. So,
do we know the circuitous route that I think you wrote about this, that the pagers took? I mean, how they got into the hands of Hezbollah using various disguises and deceptions to do so?
Yeah, there are a number of theories that are being floated because obviously the Israelis have not come clean on what exactly they did and how they did it, because I guess they presume they're going to do it again. But the licensing for the pagers came from a company in Taiwan, but that was all it was. It was licensing. The whoever paid for it, and according to the Taiwanese company, the people who paid for this were from the Middle East, and their checks were always a little bit funny, would come on a circuitous path to get to them, and that sort of thing. But anyway, the authority to create these pagers, to put them together, went to a company in Budapest, Hungary. Now, this company is also a bit shaky in its origins and what it is up to. Some have claimed it's a shell company that was set up by the Israelis specifically to run this operation. And the Hungarian government is claiming that these pagers were not, in fact, produced in Hungary. So my assumption, and that of several other people who have looked into the matter, is that these pagers were actually produced in Israel and were maybe moved up to Budapest, and then somehow a contract was entered into with Hezbollah or with Lebanese authorities, and that's where these pagers were sold. And these 5,000 pagers were intended to be the first phase in a invasion of Lebanon. But somehow the word that these pagers were a bit dodgy seems to be getting out, and the Israelis decided to move and detonate them early, even though they weren't ready to invade. So that's the way the story seems to be falling together. So it's definitely an Israeli hand, an Israeli deception operation. You have to give them credit for being very clever, but that's all, because this is horrific. They killed a lot of innocent people and indicated that this is something that will be in our future. Next time you fly an airplane, maybe your electronics will not be allowed on the plane with you. This sort of thing.
Now, these were not ordinary pagers. It was not the batteries in the pagers that exploded. There was explosive material deliberately. But correct me if I'm wrong, Phil. My understanding is that there was somebody deliberately introduced explosive materials into the interior of the pagers.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Everyone agrees on that. There's disagreement in terms of what exactly the detonator was. There is, in fact, some of the people who've examined the issue suspect that something was actually added to the battery and added to the electronics to overheat the battery and cause the battery to explode and detonate the explosive. And the explosive, of course, is what caused the serious damage. An exploding battery would not have been that big a deal, but the explosive is what killed the people and tore them apart.
Blinded a lot of people who were looking at this like I am now, right in front of their face when it exploded.